So Trish is going to come and talk to you now. Thank you very much, Trish.
That's all right. Okie dokie. My last talk of the main part of the summit, and who's coming to my workshop tomorrow with Di? You guys will get more ranting from me. So my topic for this afternoon is low stress handling for shelter animals. Just a quick poll, how many of you have already implemented a low stress handling program at your shelters? Cool, so look around you. If you got one of these folks near you, talk to them about it. So we're gonna go through why it's important to handle animals gently and sensibly and calmly in shelters. Our goal is to make every animal we touch better after their encounter with us than they were before, no matter whether we're the vet or whether we're taking them in and out of the kennels or whether we're the trainer working with them. A lot of it has to do with choice and restraint. So I'd like to just show you a couple of examples of animals who are having a welfare crisis. These animals are screaming out for some help from us. So they're not getting a lot of choice in their life. They don't have a lot of enrichment. They do have double compartment housing, but both of these dogs are dog aggressive, and one is staring at the other, and it's making one spin. So these are things that we want to intervene with. This is a little pitty that came to our shelter many years ago, who was pretty much catatonic. She lay there shaking, and that was completely shelter behavior. Once we got her out of the shelter, she was fine. That was just, I'm in the shelter and I am freaking out. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the vet handling stuff. This is, what do you do as soon as you get an animal into your shelter? You know, best practices, vet exam, vaccines, right? Deworm, all the things that you do. So think about being one of these cats. So two of them are being scruffed and stretched, which used to be how you did vaccines for cats. And one of them is getting the exam in a more low stress way. So if you were one of these cats coming to the shelter, how would you like to be handled? Which of these cats is having a good time? When we talk about assessments tomorrow, Di and I will talk about the vet exam being a way to fast track some of your pets to adoption. You know, we take them and we do the assessments and we poke and we prod and the fake hand, and we don't do that anymore. Come tomorrow and we'll find out why. But if the cat goes through or the dog goes through their vet assessment and they are, hi, nice to see you, do we need to go and poke and prod that animal to find out that it's pretty handleable? So to reduce your length of stay, to stay within your capacity for care, having a way to fast track animals is great, and your vet staff can be integral in getting that going. So the whole low stress, fear-free movement has been going on for a while on my side of the pond, and I'm delighted to see it taking off, and there's folks here who are already doing it. So if you're not, you're behind the times. Get your staff trained. So there are certifications available. There's kind of two schools of thought, and I don't really care which one you like better. The low stress name was more Dr. Sophia Yin's way of doing things. She had a wonderful book. I know I brought some to the last summit. They weigh a ton. But it comes with a DVD with lots of exercises, and Fear Free is the newer one on the market, and they just came out like within the last couple of weeks with a shelter course. So if you go to the Fear Free website, you can get certified in fear-free handling, and it doesn't cost you anything. So I stole a couple of screenshots from them. I'm sure they won't mind because I'm sending them some business. But they talk about fear, anxiety, and stress and how to minimize that in the shelter. And it's a 4-hour course. So if this intrigues you, go directly over, take the certification. So it's all about making things better for the animals, making sure every one of our contacts with them makes them better, not worse. So what else can we do to help shelter pets? The number one thing that you can do to help ensure that the animals are having a good time with you is become an expert in body language. So whatever species you're working with, or all the species you're working with, learn how to read them. Because then you'll be able to tell if you're doing a little bit too much, if you need to slow down. You'll see those early stress signs before they have to strike back and say, stop it. So I'll just give you a couple of little things to think about. I could honestly go on for the rest of the weekend on just body language. But a couple little things, just the displacement or cutoff signals that dogs do, the stress yawn, the lip lick, the look away, the sniffing, the shake off. If these are unfamiliar terms to you, go learn some more. The Canine Communication Series on ASPCA Pro is also free. There's a Feline Communication Series there as well. You'll recognize the voice on some of those webinars. And learning how to use your body language. I did a whole piece on the Canine Communication Series on how you can use your body language to help the animal feel more secure. So getting a little sideways to them, making yourself a little smaller and less threatening, not looming over, using a kind, soft voice. So you can see this. This is a fight bust dog from the same bust I got my dog from. And she was super fearful of new things. So she's at the vet and she's offering her paw, one of her tricks. And you can see the long lip, the ears back, the fearful body language with her. And the vet tech made herself smaller. She's not frontal. She's using the happy voice. It's just a little thing that most animals understand if you just use a soft, kind voice with them rather than being creepily quiet. So here's a little bit of body language. I kind of feel naked if I go into a shelter without some sort of treat pouch on me. So if your staff are not wearing treat pouches, get them some. You can get the nail pouches from the hardware store. They cost almost nothing. They're easy to sanitize. And if they see animals being quiet, they can toss a little. It doesn't have to be a giant treat. You can give them a tiny little treat and toss it in there. And you can make a whole kennel quiet. So this is the bite area of the shelter, so the arousal level in here is really high, and you can see I'm trying to, I think I'm wearing the same shirt in this video. You can see I'm trying to get one of their more reactive shepherds to calm down and be quiet. I am wearing the same shirt. I live in a tiny house, so I don't have a lot of clothes. So I'm making myself smaller, I'm squatting down, I'm flinging the treats in pretty low, and it doesn't actually even matter if they're quiet. Even if they're barking, if you keep throwing food at them, they have to like you. So watch this little guy. This is from the ASPCA series. And if some people say, well, aren't you rewarding him for barking if you're throwing food? Well, the definition of reinforcement is it makes the behavior more likely. So if I walk up and it makes the behavior less likely, then I am not rewarding barking. I'm a little too frontal in this video. I should have got a little more sideways with this guy. Because looming over a little dog that's too much of a loom. But because I'm giving him cheese, look at his little tail. He's like, come back, give me some more. And he was the barkiest dog at that shelter on that day. And that was a please come back bark. And you get that one barky dog to be quiet at your shelter. It helps everybody. So training your staff, you can do click for quiet, you can just reward them, you can put treat buckets on the outside of the kennel. And because what happens in a shelter, the reason we get reactivity is dog's in a cage, something walks by, a person or a dog, the dog goes rah, 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 rah. And guess what happens? Person leaves, it totally worked, or dog leaves. So this is why we get all of that noise in the kennel. And just using a kind tone of voice, especially with cats. Cats respond really well to speaking to them kindly. And with cats too, you can help them by doing your cat work before you do your dog work in the shelter, if humanly possible, so that they're very sensitive to smells. And if you smell like dog and you go in and you try to handle the cats, it's going to freak some of them out. So try to do your cats first. Here's a little bit of cat body language. This is something that cats do. This was at a shelter I was at last week, and this cat was pretending to be asleep. And that is something that cats will do. They will just lie there with their eyes closed, but you can see her body language. She's not asleep. She's got her head up, but she's just closed her eyes and she's gone into her special place, because that's a stressful place for a cat. And she was in the front window, but facing away from the people. Other things we can do is we can keep the same handlers in the same kennels, especially with your more behaviorally challenged animals. Don't have a new person in there every day. Keep everything consistent as far as walks, as far as cleaning, as far as feeding schedules. Really try to give them some predictability in their lives. And having double compartment housing so that the cat's toilet is not right beside their kitchen. Nobody likes to eat in their toilet. And if we've got a cage the size of an oven, there's no way for the cat to get away, but adding a portal, having 2 sides for every animal is ideal. And giving them choice, giving them enrichment. So look at this guy. Like what choice does he have in this kennel? Do you see a bed? Do you see a blanket? Do you see a toy? He's got nothing. That's just a cement box. And think about, I gave you that image the other day of how it would be to live in a box with nothing to do. This is what causes stress. We can also do a lot once we get to handling the dogs. You think about low stress handling, you think about the vet side of things, but those of us who are handling dogs from the behavior team, from the animal care team, just getting them in and out of the kennel gently. So this dog is one who likes to jump and grab at leashes and people, and it's all in fun, but again, we want him to be better after we handle him, not worse. So watch what Arthur's doing with the slip lead. He's just going to gently leash this dog and take him out without going all the way in, because if he goes all the way in with him, he's going to jump and grab and steal the leash and run around. So look, he's putting his head where it needs to be, using a snack, and just watch how gently he gets him out. So I don't want to go back to my kennel. So would you go for a cookie? Okay. And the same thing putting him back. I'm sure you've seen folks trying to get the leash back off the dog after they've put them back in the kennel. But again, if you're wearing your treat pouch, you can use the treat to put his head where you need it to be. And it looks easy, doesn't it? And good handling should look easy. So it's just a matter of having the right tools and knowing what to use for each dog. So here's an example of some poor welfare. This is that really depressing shelter again. They have 3 foot by 4 foot, like a little over 1 meter cubes that they are in. And there's no beds. You can't have enrichment because the drains are the same size as the Kong. We were trying to figure out how to chain a bone to like a nylabone to the front of the kennel somehow. And in this shelter, they were also hosing the dogs with the dogs in the kennel, which should be illegal. So you can see that the kennel floor is wet, and look how stressed this dog is. So he's just grabbing at everything in his kennel because he's got nothing to do. He's got, and this is a challenge to get in and out of the kennel. This is a dog a lot of you would have to use a catch pole on to get him out, and everything that goes in there is just getting bitten. So so what choice did that guy have? There's no bed, there's no blanket, there's no bone. They need at least that, and cats need that as well, plus a hiding place. That's the first pit bull that Arthur was taking out. He went to a shelter in Arizona, and he got adopted. So this is that depressing shelter again, which doesn't exist anymore. They bulldozed it. They made a new shelter. It just opened this year, so no dogs are living like that in that city anymore. But the thing that kept those animals sane was they had a great play yard. They had somebody in charge of doing play groups. So this is the same shelter that bitey dog was in, and the sad puppy. And look at what they got to do for an hour or two a day. So this is the antidote to the kennel stress, giving them enrichment, giving them stuff to do, stuff to chew on. There's no social animal that will become behaviorally more healthy in solitary confinement. You can also help, even if you are using slip leads on your dogs, it can be helpful to have ways to take the pressure off their necks. Some of the dogs who are coming up and grabbing the leashes and getting really aroused on leash are doing it because they can't breathe, because they're pulling so hard that they're choking themselves out. So teaching your staff ways to make your leashes into harnesses can be helpful. Those of you who came to my defensive handling class already know this one. So that's just taking the pressure off his neck. So the leash is going between the front legs. This is not the one that goes around their waist and makes them angry. This is the one between the front legs. So this little fearful guy I showed you in the play group, he needed a place to hide. He was very reactive in his kennel because he had nowhere to hide, I think. If you can't get away, your only choice is to scare everybody else away. And for cats, it's super important to give them a hiding place. I've been to shelters where there's like a fishbowl. People can walk by on both sides, and there's nowhere for these shy cats to hide. It's really not good for their mental health. And people say, well, we can't give them a hiding place because then nobody will see them and they won't get adopted. But they will actually show better if they have the choice. It's all about giving them the choice of whether to see or be seen. And with your reactive dogs, I've seen two ways of dealing with this. And one is to cover the entire front of the kennel. So imagine yourself in that prison cell and you can't see people walking by. You're just in total sensory deprivation. Not helpful. And I've seen people cover the bottom of the kennel, which, what do you get when you do that? You get pogo dogs, yes. Boing. But if you cover half of the front of the kennel, or you give them a crate with a sheet over it. And with cats, you can get kids to make little boxes and decorate them with the seasons, but give animals choice of whether to see or be seen. That can really help. And of course, it's super important to get them out of the kennel. There's so many dogs who show poorly. That dog who was biting everything in the kennel, guess what he did when we got him into the play yard? He played. I tried to find the video of him. I don't think I got video of him in the play yard, but he had a great time when he got out. And some of you have veterinarians or vet behaviorists who can help you with medication, and that can be helpful with the dogs, and Gabby addressed that in her talk. Other things you can do is control the dog's pain. If the dog has just had neuter surgery or any kind of medical intervention, make sure people know, make sure people are a little bit softer and gentler with them, make sure pain control is adequate. And again, giving the dogs choice. So train your staff in not chasing them around and scaring them, but using food, using their body language, and bringing the animal in. So sometimes you get further with an animal by, you just think, I gotta get this done, I gotta go just grab that animal. But sometimes you can get things done more quickly if you take things a little more slowly. Another thing that can be helpful, I kind of feel like I'm a translator for a lot of my clients when I'm working with animals, because we like to inflict attention on dogs and cats especially. So teaching staff and volunteers that if the animal's backing away from you, you don't need to come in and corner them. So everybody who touches these animals, the goal is they'll be better after the contact with you than before. So treat pouches, and buckets on the outside of the kennel will make a huge difference. So here's a fun enrichment project. This is not shelter dogs, although several of them came from shelters. But this is enrichment time in my tiny house.
And this is how you do Kong time when it's snowing outside.
That's 3 of my dogs and a foster dog. And they've all got their Kongs, but they're all separated. And that's a 15-meter square house. And everybody gets their enrichment, and everybody gets their own space to deal with it. When dealing with cats, one problem I see a lot in shelters is people will put cats on the floor in those transfer cages or in the crates they come in. That is the worst thing for cats. Some of the other speakers have mentioned this. If you can have a table where the cats are put on and cover the carriers. The number of times I've seen cats in open transfer carriers with dogs walking by and people walking by and the cat, like the next person who handles that cat is going to get nailed. So something as simple as having sheets, people love donating old sheets, cover all of those cages if you have to stack the cat somewhere while you're doing the intake. If you can, cats should always be separated from dogs. If you can keep them away from the sound of dogs, it's better for the cats. And again, they need a hiding place. So this is somebody putting just a crate into the cat's cage so that she has a place to hide. Really important. A lot of cats get out of the shelter and never go back to the vet again because people don't know how to put them in a crate. So when you're boxing them up to go home, just mention that putting them in butt first with the crate tipped up is a lot more likely to be successful. And if they have a kitten, they can feed them in the crate and make them love the crate, because so many cats don't get vet care because people don't know that simple trick. And bedding, I see people, well, we can't have bedding, it's too hard to disinfect, and the dogs chew it up. Your community would love to give you all of their old towels and sheets and blankets, and even if the animals chew it up and you have to throw it out, it's not optional. Think about that jail cell I showed you in my first presentation, and think about how it would be if you had to sleep on the cold concrete. Like that's just not even optional. So look how much this poor little cat with the cat flu is enjoying her bed and her attention. Yeah, she's just had a tail amputation. She's got cat flu. She's having a really bad week, but she loved that bed. That was just the nicest bed. And it's just a cheap $5 cat bed from the bulk store. So as far as handling more fractious animals, there's a lot of stuff in the fear-free literature on using towels, especially with cats and small dogs. There are many wraps you can do with towels. So if you don't know how to do these, take the course, find out how to use towels so that you don't have to scruff and stretch and restrain and force animals into compliance. So Dr. Yin gave me permission in my presentation a number of years ago to use some of her videos. So this is one of her towel videos.
This wrap is for cats who are nervous but are still holding still. All you do is you pull the towel over the cat's head. And I notice that I'm still holding the cat in place so the cat doesn't jump off the table. And then I fold this side over. Notice I'm still holding the cat. And then I fold the other side over. And from here, I can just keep a little bit of pressure on top of the towel, or I can fold my arm over the cat. And then I can give an injection in the rear leg.
So even if you're working alone in the clinic, if you're handy with the towel, and she has DVDs, she has all kinds of material on her website on how to use towels to help with cats. And we talked about non-threatening body language. If your animals will eat, you should use food, and I cannot believe Australia still doesn't have squeezed cheese, because that is the best thing in the world. But you can see this dog's getting a vaccine. It's clearly not a happy dog. It's wearing a muzzle, but at least at the same time, it is eating cheese. So Di gave me some ideas for Australian substitutes. If you can get some of this into your vet clinic, and you don't have to give them the whole can of it, but give them a little bit of, there's anchovy paste and Vegemite cheesy bite, which just sounds terrifying. And if you need to use a muzzle, that's fine. Here's some muzzle tips from my speaking partner, Mike Shikashio. Get your American friends to bring it. You can do this one, though. I've done that one for grooming. That's awesome. So, yeah, the cones can also be used here as a way to, 10 more minutes, I got so much to tell you. Using minimal restraint rather than pinning animals down. If it's a calm animal, we don't need to scruff them and stretch them. Use the very least. You can get little ketchup containers if you're worried about disease at the shelter. You don't want to use the same spoon with every animal. You can put a little glob of peanut butter or Vegemite Cheesy Bite in each of those. And while they're getting their injections, just hold that in front and let them eat. So a few more options for positive reinforcement. There's a study done on full body restraint versus more gentle restraint. So again, which cat would you rather be? And they've actually got data around it that the cats jumped off the table a lot more quickly. There were more stress signs in the animals that were in full body restraint. So if it's not necessary, don't do it. So here's some options. These are all in the ASPCA Pro Feline Communication webinar. Just if you don't need to scruff them, don't scruff them. This is the one I use with my cats when they're at the vet. They're both fairly calm, but it just keeps the cat from being able to whip around and bite the vet while they're getting their shots. And of course, chemical restraint is a kinder thing to do if you have to do a full exam on a cat who is really fractious. A lot of them calm down in a few days at the shelter. It doesn't mean they're feral if they had a bad day. Okay, here's some chemical restraint with the dog.
Pretty good there. So just a little bit more tartar on this side. There's the missing tooth we were talking about. Again, I can tell.
So that's a dog who absolutely any kind of restraint would flip her out. So she got her exam completely unconscious with a nice cocktail from the vet. Using a catch pole, when I worked with the ASPCA, our best handlers very rarely had to use them. There are reasons to use them, but try to minimize it. This dog has both a slip lead and a catch pole, so one person can hold each, which is a little gentler. And he was hideous in the kennel. A lot of people wouldn't have even got him out, but guess what happened? I'll show you in the next video. I just want to remind you, do not use catch poles on cats. You can kill them. That's a bobcat on the left. It's a dog-sized cat from North America, and he's got it through the front legs. It's a wild animal, but a net is a much safer way to use it to restrain or catch a cat who's running. So here's that guy from the catch pole video. Guess what happened when he took him out to play? Oh my God, does he love dogs? If you saw him in his kennel 5 minutes before this, you never would believe that's the same dog. He was adopted within a week. That behavior was entirely shelter related. And once he started coming out to play, he stopped doing it. So we're going to try to make our animals better every time we touch them. We're going to try to keep things gentle. Be consistent, go take these courses, make your staff take the courses, give them prizes. Give everybody a food pouch to wear around the shelter. It is not cheating to use food. It is our duty to make these animals better, and food is the fastest way, but social contact will work as well, whether it's human social contact or conspecific contact. And again, give them choice. A lot of the bites that happen in shelters, a lot of the scratches are when an animal is cornered and feels they have no way to get away. Learn some ways to do the restraint without the full-on scruff stretch, and get them out of the shelter, reduce your length of stay. So in conclusion, I am actually collecting handling videos. I'm doing a presentation next year called Secrets of the Shelter Ninjas, and I would love to have some Australian shelter ninjas. So take these hints, go back, do some awesome handling, and there's my contact information if you want a picture of it, and send me an email with your awesome handling videos with everything you've learned from here. So thank you much. We're going to play a game after this.